Hey kids, you like that rock and roll?
Don't worry, don't be afraid, ever. This is just a ride.
On the program this evening,
Four Brothers Podcast.
Welcome to the Four Brors Podcast. Today's guest is afraid to be here in front of four masked men. He is a former PSNI officer, Stothers.
Thanks very much.
Pleasure, mate. Really appreciate you coming down. Thank you.
I'm sorry you
Just
have to be here
first
in
of
front
all,
of this.
we'll start with it wasn't us. We didn't do any of that shit.
Yeah, no, we weren't the ones.
We weren't there.
I know they look like us, but
We weren't there. I swear. But
No,
yes,
thanks very much for
thank you,
having
man.
me. I appreciate
really
it.
appreciate it, man.
yeah, it's
Honestly,
it's amazing having you down. Like this is going to be one for the
books. A different sort of guest than we would normally be used to. You know.
Yeah, okay.
So it's good to have.
We thought like an ex-policeman talking to four idiots in balaclavas is going to be like pretty.
That's breaking down barriers right there already.
Absolutely.
Already.
I was doing my PTSD, no good at all. I've had plenty of dreams like this. You were holding a blowtorch, you had a pair of pliers, and I don't want to say what you two were doing, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh mate, I'm sorry.
We're a thing of nightmares. Like, yeah, it's fucking great having you, mate.
Yes. And could we start by talking about your PTSD? Are you comfortable talking about that, or?
Yeah, certainly.
Because it's something that interests me a lot,
And it's also something that we talk about a lot. We dealt with anxiety and probably a very
PTSD.
That's not
like
PTSD.
that's stolen valor right there.
No, but
Rumination, more like.
But like a subcategory of this podcast would be mental health. Like you would see us
we would talk a lot about it. So, like, first of all, you got a medical discharge basically from the police because of the PTSD?
Yeah, that's right. In the 4th of April last year,
right.
I was medically discharged. Diagnosed with complex PTSD and physical injuries. That relates to gunshot injury back in 2010, but primarily post-traumatic stress disorder.
How did your PTSD manifest? Like, what does it look like?
That's a really good question. Yeah. And I suppose I'm still dealing with that, and I'm still trying to recognise that in myself.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
At the time, I was very dismissive of mental health.
Yeah.
You know, I was very much of the opinion, give yourself a shake and get on with it.
Yeah, like sort of stoicism and get on with it. Like,
that generation grazed us as well, because growing up,
there was part of that we could have kept on that path. Sort of, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But we have definitely got to the point where it's easier to talk to each other about things like that without feeling the
and that's important.
Embarrassment of it, you know, for sure.
To be open about everything like that.
So, when did it start then? At least manifesting itself.
I suppose when you look back at my career, I had 21 and a bit years of policing within Northern Ireland, policing conflict and trauma. Mm-hmm. And that was drip feeding into my PTSD
the whole time.
Probably from the start, yeah. How did it manifest? I can tell you a story actually, which probably highlights it quite well. Mm-hmm. Right. I wasn't feeling the best. I knew I was starting to spiral. It was towards the end of my career. Mm-hmm. My now wife said to me, "We'll go for a walk. We'll go to Cave Hill," because she had never been there before. Yeah. So she took the day off work. I was off, and we drove from the Ards Peninsula to Cave Hill. We got in the car, never said a word. Drove to Cave Hill Forest Park, Country Park, and walked up to Napoleon's Nose and never said a word. We then walked back to the car, and she said to me, "Just tell me what's wrong." I burst out crying.
Right.
I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I said that to her. I don't know what the F's wrong with me. How can I tell you? And that was probably the first time that had really come to the surface for me, where I'd realised I'm not right here.
Yeah.
And that's when, with the help of her, and thank God, she found help for me. Mm-hmm. But that was the first time it really came to the surface.
And it was that sort of like... was that feeling of, even though you knew you were going through some form of turmoil, you couldn't pinpoint an exact thing that, like, okay, that's made me feel this way? Or was it just like a...
No trigger?
No trigger of it? It was just
plenty
like
of triggers. Oh, no, I had plenty of triggers. So I was badly injured, shot in 2010. From probably 6 months, a year after that, a big trigger for me would have been getting into the shower. So every morning I would get into the shower and look down, and not necessarily see blood on the floor, but it would always bring me back. It would trigger me back to
Right.
being in the Mater Hospital and seeing the floor covered with blood.
Right. Yeah.
So that was always a trigger.
It was
Still-
just such a vivid memory.
very much so, yeah. Now, not every morning, but most mornings.
Most mornings.
So I suppose I was starting every day being re-traumatized.
Yeah.
And when you're starting your day like that, generally it's hard to snap out of that.
Yeah, it's
for
going to
quite a
get
while.
worse throughout the day then because it's already started.
Absolutely. When you talk about triggers, I had lots of different triggers, and I suppose that's the thing about triggers. You don't know when they're going to trigger you.
It'd be
So-
as simple as a location or
Yeah.
just passing somewhere that. Yeah.
Absolutely. We've neighbours who are originally from Kent and had asked me about a year ago, 18 months ago, to take them for a drive around Belfast. They wanted to see the peace walls.
Aye,
bits and
yes.
pieces. So I did, and I was fine. I thought I was fine. For days after that, I was up to high dough. I wasn't sleeping again. I hyper vigilant, checking the house at 3 a.m. So
And is that just from going down that same route then? I'm sure that you did many times.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
seen some pretty horrendous things. Or
Yeah.
or at least at the time when you were driving there, you would have had to been in that vigilant
Yeah.
state.
Plus, you're so used to this, like, because you were there for 21 years and doing this, when that manifested as depression or anxiety, you don't necessarily go, that's what it came from all this 21 years, because it comes from nowhere, sort of. And it's like, yes, there's triggers, but once you're in this state now, it's like, what's wrong with me?
yeah.
So I think that interests me. So it's because obviously I don't have PTSD or anything. Like, is it actually depression and anxiety and all those things manifesting out of nowhere, or are you just going back into like a fight or flight mode from that time without wanting to be in it? If you know what I mean. Like, is it flicking your brain back into like fight mode?
Well, that's exactly it. I've spent so long in that fight or flight mode
Yeah.
that it's hard to distinguish when you are and when you aren't
Yeah,
in that fight or flight
exactly.
mode. For example, coming here today, I was here an hour essentially before
Just to
the
scope out.
podcast. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I wanted to scope out the area. And I'm meeting 4 guys in balaclavas for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
But, do you know what I mean?
Understandable.
But yeah, so it's, I suppose that's a big thing. It's the way it was described to me a few years ago. If you imagine your brain's like a sponge,
Yeah.
and everything that happens to you is a drip of water. You have an argument with the wife, that's a teaspoon of water.
Yeah.
Something major happens in your life, well, that's a cup of water.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, that sponge is so full and it can't hold the water anymore, so it starts spilling out of its own accord. So that's when those flashbacks happen. That's when,
Yes.
It's a good analogy.
when
Like,
those,
yeah.
when those things happen. It really worked for me. It really-
Sorry.
Plus, the panic attack is probably that sponge being squeezed and all the water coming out at once, like, and
Yeah.
just you don't know what
So
the
they're
fuck
the
to do
big
with
thing.
it.
So the way that sort of was explained was sometimes you need to wring the sponge out in that controlled
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah,
So that's where
100%, like.
the EMDR,
Yeah.
CBT
Yeah.
therapy came in and really helped me and undoubtedly saved my life. I was at
Yeah.
a very low point in my life as a result of this. And it was through getting the proper help and reaching out and talking about it that
They got you on the
Okay.
path
Got me on
to
the
get
path.
better. So is it
let's talk
that?
a
made it
little
easier.
bit about that.
So is it that thinking part of your brain that just gets skipped then? So like, you're going from a thought that could be like, you hear a bang outside, let's say, and then us normally will process and go, it's probably this, that and the other. Nothing's happened for 3 seconds. Everything's fine. Whereas like, are you having that thought and then it's skipping that process point and going straight to acting?
Not
You know?
necessarily. So anger, when I was probably in the depths of it, I would get very angry very quickly,
Yeah.
quite aggressive. Unintentionally, I'm quite a rational thinking person. And in the field that I worked in the latter end of my career, you had to be rational thinking.
Yeah.
Yes, I used a lot of aggression in that job, but it was controlled aggression.
Yeah.
So I knew when to bring it up and when to bring it down. But all of a sudden,
Almost like an act. Like
very much so, yeah. All of a sudden, I had no control over that, and I wasn't able to process things rationally. I couldn't see the wood for the trees, I suppose, would be the best way
Yeah,
to
exactly.
describe it.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. It's it's mental health. I was so dismissive of it. I worked in a male only environment, dominated by males, and it was to admit that you weren't feeling well or to admit that I'm not feeling great at the minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was weakness.
You
And
just
nobody
kept
wants
it
to
to
be weak.
yourself. Like,
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah,
That's true.
the strong silent type everybody strived to be, you know, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not trying to, like, don't know the word I'm looking for. I'm not trying to, like, my experiences aren't exactly like yours, but I would have had pretty bad anxiety and panic attacks when I was 17, and I would never have told anybody until I was about 22, 23, and I started trying to tell people, like, but see, once I did, started feeling amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and they never went away, but I was able to deal with them, was able to look at them from an outside perspective then, you know, like through other people's eyes, and like, yeah, it's just...
yeah, it's good to talk.
It's a strength. Undoubtedly, it is a strength. I always would have seen it as a weakness.
Yeah.
But actually putting your hand up and saying, I'm having a shit day today, I'm not feeling 100%. Do you know what? I need to sit on the bench for a couple of days here because I'm not going to give you the best version of me for a couple of days.
Yeah.
So just take me off the bench, or take me off, let me sit on the bench, let me get my shit together, and coming back, you know, the best version that you can be, you know, that to me, that's the strength, and I recognize that now. I didn't a couple of years ago. It's like, tighten up, you know. We used to have a saying down home, it was pour yourself a couple of blue circle cement,
Right.
harden the fuck up.
Yeah.
Pull yourself together,
Yeah.
man.
Aye, we were the same when we were younger. Like, you know, don't be a pussy about it. Like, get on with it. You know,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Funny how the opposite of that is, though, you know.
Yeah. You were saying that you went through some therapy to help you then. Can you talk a wee bit about therapy?
Absolutely. So
I've heard of CBT you were talking about.
CBT and EMDR. Now,
EMDR.
I can't remember. I should have had this nailed down, but the EMDR is basically desensitization and it's reprocessing. So it's all to do with your eye movement and tapping. So it was a guy, Dr. Michael Patterson.
Shut it.
Absolutely. Saved my life and undoubtedly saved my relationship and my life in treating me. And he made a very good point. Whilst I was policing, I was never going to get better because I was still in that environment.
Yeah.
And I still struggle to this day. I still struggle with PTSD and with physical injuries as a result of my career. But Dr. Patterson, he started me on the EMDR treatment, and it was just life-changing for me. I told you this before we recorded, one of the first days I was in with him, and he asked me what I knew about EMDR therapy. And I told him, as far as I was concerned, it was tree-hugging hippie bullshit, and it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And 20 minutes later, I was sitting in a chair crying like a baby.
Yeah.
Not a wee girl, as he corrected me.
He actually said wee girl. Cancel him.
Yeah, but that in itself, and again through Dr. Patterson, he pointed that out. It's not funny that you would say crying like a wee girl because that was seen as a weakness.
Yes.
But it's not.
Yes, but it's not, yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, no, it's just
100% no,
stereotypes.
Absolutely.
We're built up to
Crying's
say, like,
cathartic,
So,
like it truly is, you know. And did you find that this sort of therapy helped a lot more than any sort of pharmaceutical drugs that were thrown your way at the start? Yeah.
So I was doing that in conjunction with
the therapy.
the therapy. So I was I was with the GP at the time, who I was on a number of different antidepressants.
I know my experience with antidepressants. I've been on citalopram for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to wean myself off it at the minute. At the minute, I'm actually 5 days off it. I'm starting to space out a bit. I'm like, you know, I'm getting PTSD now. But I think medication's one of those things. It's good for emergency. It's good if you're in a real, like, for me, it helped me out of like,
Short term, like, you know.
like when you're really down there and you can't see a way out. It's good to sort of like bring yourself back up and try to like sort of stabilize yourself. But then once you're there, you need to sort of find a different path, like, because it's not forever.
I think a lot of the thing with the pharmaceutical things is the side effects that they cause in conjunction with taking them is a bigger problem than a lot of people let on, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like
I
having
know
sex is a no-go. Just doesn't work.
So like obviously we couldn't indulge in this here because it's illegal, but like I was saying to offline, if you listen to the Sean Ryan podcast, I would listen to a lot of that, and I've been listening to a lot of RFK Jr. At the moment, and he's sort of spearheading this veteran movement of people with PTSD that aren't getting the help that they need. And there's a drug called Ibogaine.
I
Right.
haven't heard of it, but I know
And
you're talking about
ibogaine,
it.
it's in the
Synthetic, is it?
no, it's in the it's in the umbrella of psychedelics, but it has no recreational basis whatsoever. Like there's no euphoria, there's no nice time, there's none of that, you know. And
So you're not taking it
It's
really. You don't want
no,
it.
you take it once and you never want to do
Yeah.
it again. That's like the feeling that everybody's got off it. It's not like this thing that you do
It
for a
has no
long time,
addiction
you know.
kinda-
It can be quite dangerous if administered wrong, because there's a lot of people doing it illegally. If administered wrong, it can cause cardiac arrest,
Right, okay.
just based on the doses that you're putting into the body. But if done safely, it's completely fine. Like, which is another reason of why it probably should be legally used, and people aren't doing that. So at the moment, people have to go to the places like Mexico and Peru and stuff to do things like this. But I think this is an actual number, is 93% of veterans with PTSD that took ibogaine straight away after their first dose, gone. Completely gone, you know.
That's phenomenal.
And it helps with like addiction for alcohol and drugs and stuff like that as well. Like people
Much
are
like the ayahuasca.
much like ayahuasca, much like ayahuasca. But I think the difference with the ibogaine is, like, ayahuasca is a journey, apparently, you know, and then the ibogaine is more like a one and done sort of.
You'd be interested to know
You do,
exactly
you know?
what's
You know.
happening, because what's gone, you know, because you've still got those memories. Or is the memory, are you able to react to
So
them differently?
apparently, again, through the studies that they're doing now, what it does is it gives you basically a play-by-play of your whole life, and shows you everything, and shows you why you don't have to be guilty or regretful, or why you do have to be guilty and regretful, and things like that.
Near-death experience kind of shit.
Kind of, but I think what it does is there's something that builds up on your brain when you have PTSD. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Maybe you know yourself when you get brain scans and stuff.
Is it like a plaque or something? Like
Something like that, you know. And
that down,
apparently ibogaine dissolves that completely,
okay.
and it's the same with like people that have addictions. Like that hardened part of your brain it can take years to retrain. Is just completely broken down in one session, you know.
Is there not cases? Sorry, is there not cases where ayahuasca and all kind of
Do that as
goes
well?
the other way? Like it makes you worse?
No,
No.
it's never made
I've heard
anybody
cases of
worse.
people going mad. You know?
No. What people have done is obviously had bad experiences while in the space of taking the ayahuasca for whatever reason is in their head that they have to deal with. But it's never been with ayahuasca, it's never been a long lasting effect
It is,
after, you know.
You know, undoubtedly it's a pandemic at the minute, you know.
It really seems to be like.
PTSD.
Oh, Jesus
I'd
Christ.
say it's
yeah.
one of the most important pandemics
I
to
just
talk
wonder
about.
why
Like,
there isn't enough research going on, you know, at a government level, at a, you know,
We could go
at a
down
higher
those
level.
avenues.
Because
like,
they don't want to fix it.
Yeah.
Because
Opposed to-
fixing it means they don't have a patient for life. So,
Yeah.
like, if they make ayahuasca or
money-making thing,
ibogaine
like,
legal, and you have people with PTSD and you're fixing them in, let's say, 4 months,
Yeah.
how much money can you make? But if you have them
Depression
on
is
X,
a
Y,
great
and
thing
Z,
for the-
they're on that for 25 years.
That's why
you
I'm
know?
trying to wean myself off citalopram, because in 10 years, what's my doctor done for me? Other than go take that?
Yeah.
You know what
And
I
I
mean? He
think-
hasn't even contacted me to go, right, do you want to
You
start
all right, mate?
weaning off them and what's going on with your head at the minute and all, you know? It's like,
Yeah, which I think is reflective on the health service as well, because does your doctor have time to do that for everybody? Which
Nope.
is bad.
No.
It's so
No.
bad. So I don't. For me, when I was given the antidepressants, which I still take, when I was given those, it was nearly like a sticking plaster, and
Yeah.
first ones didn't work, second ones didn't work. It was just try this, and to me, they were just thrown medication to try and solve this problem.
Yeah.
Which, as you've already alluded to, once you get that under control, you need to be addressing the
There
root-
needs to be a
root
next
cause.
step. Yeah.
What is the root cause of this?
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I suppose
Medication
that's where-
doesn't do that,
No,
like.
absolutely not.
And
And,
is
I
there
think
a-
that's where therapy comes in.
Yeah.
You know, and possibly I don't know enough about it, and I don't really want to comment, but possibly like ayahuasca and other
psilocybin seems to be
psychedelics
coming
anyway.
into the-
Like, I know that there is
DMT?
enough research now that psychedelics definitely have
Oh, yeah, no, that's-
weight in
100%.
have a say in the
If
conversation.
done in the right medical setting, administered by professionals with, you know, a guide and all the rest of it.
You look at cannabis, how far
know.
it has come that it's now prescribed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's
For a lot of different things, yeah.
not necessarily mental health, but in some cases, yeah, but more
Yeah.
pain relief, but still.
Well, mental health.
But I
As
know,
well.
but then again, it doesn't help my mental health, and I know
Oh,
that.
it's not
you know.
for-
Same as
everybody is,
anything, you
yes,
know?
you know.
It's the same as anything.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it, you know, to sort of comment. You know, my opinion on it. you do what works for you. You have to do what's going to work for you.
Exactly.
It's not a one shot fixes all. You know,
No.
so you have to find what works for you.
100%.
Unfortunately, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's ever a 100% you're fine. It's a constant
definitely not.
battle to
Oh, it's
work
a
on it
constant battle.
and maintain
Honestly,
it and
it
keep
goes-
You can never
yourself
be your
better.
best. You always have to keep striving
Yeah.
to be better. Like.
It goes both ways for me.
Saying
like,
that,
you know,
but
with
I think everybody has to do
cannabis,
that.
Look,
Sorry, go ahead, Martin.
so I'm just saying it goes both ways with smoking cannabis for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it can either be good or bad. You know what I mean? It's never just good. It's never just bad. It's always either or. You know what I mean?
Definitely
But
depends on
it
the
used to
person.
be just good.
Also,
you know?
don't put. I think another problem people do, especially with cannabis, is put so much weight onto it and say, "Oh, it is good because I smoked it." Or it's just you, you know. It's just you.
Yeah.
It's you've done that when you've smoked that, and you're in a more sensitive mind state. You're more sensitive to emotion and whatever else, and you have then made yourself bad, or you have made yourself good. And I think
Like I
that's
know,
the thing.
and we've had friends with
To look at,
mental
you know?
health problems that have went down the avenue of cannabis, and they, in our opinion, have had underlying schizophrenia or something.
Yeah.
And it's just brought that up here.
Brought that.
Oh,
And
aye.
it will. And it will. If you have schizophrenia, in my opinion, in you, that will trigger
that's
it.
it.
Or
That will
anything like
trigger
that.
it, you know.
Anything like that. You
Yeah,
know?
and I suppose that's where sort of goes back to that the research and, like you said, if something's administered properly under proper supervision,
I think that's the key.
that is
Yeah,
absolutely
definitely. Don't
again,
abuse.
former police
Shamans
officer,
or doctors?
I'm not condoning the use of cannabis or illegal
Or
drugs
condemning is what I'm hearing.
Condemning, no, absolutely. I don't know enough about it. But you know, you have to do what's right for you. If it's working for
100%.
you, then that's well and good. But if it's not, then
You need to
where do go?
realise that and
Yeah.
stop and
But,
find
you know,
something different. Yeah, 'cause
I was
it's-
very fortunate in when I went through the traumas that I went through, not so much the traumas, but when I went through the process of being diagnosed with PTSD, my mental health starting to slip, I had a real good network around me. My wife, my family, really strong
It's a
family.
big part of it too.
3
like.
brothers, and
Massive
the
part
eldest
of
of
it.
4 brothers.
Always helps.
So,
out.
yeah, absolutely.
Shout out the
So-
four Brors.
Shout out the eldest.
So yeah, that's important too. Having that network around you. It's when you don't have that network.
100%.
People need to know where to turn, and that's the key.
And it's a lot of it isn't available.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it isn't available. And like you were saying, finding the right thing for you, I think it is that thing of whatever you can do that makes you feel better, that has the least amount of negative side effects, is
Yeah.
probably the way to go. Like, you know,
Absolutely.
and if it is an abstract medication like psilocybin or a psychedelic, and you do have negative side, stop.
Yeah.
You know, it definitely can't work for everybody.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is
It's like alcohol. A lot of people turn to alcohol.
exactly.
And,
Yeah.
you know,
Exactly.
it's not the answer. We know it's
And
not
again,
the answer.
abuse it. They abuse
Yeah.
it. You know.
I do. I abuse alcohol for
Yeah.
sure. You know.
Yeah, I think we all do it at times.
Yeah.
I'm great crack when I'm drinking, to be fair. So.
Yeah, so you have to abuse it, really. Yeah.
Here's a moving on to a bit of a different subject. Can you talk about the origins of you becoming a police officer?
Yeah, absolutely.
What that was like, your head process back then, and compared to now. and
Did,
stuff?
did you always want to be a cop?
I sort of did, yeah. I always wanted to be in the police. I wanted to do something cool, you know, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw that as doing something cool.
I admit I
Something
wanted
has
to be a
meaning.
policeman when I was younger. Like I wanted to be a number of things, like but policeman was
I wanted to
definitely
be
one of
an
them.
American policeman, though, like a crime
You
soldier
never
or
seen it,
something.
you
The movies, like,
you didn't know the rap was
you
going
know,
to
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, but that's the thing. I grew up, you know, I was always sitting in the middle of things, you know, I suppose rough and tumble. You know, the eldest of 4 brothers.
Shout out four Brors.
I'd always wanted to do something like that, military or policing.
Yeah, adventure,
I,
like.
I didn't, to be honest, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I still don't. You know, I'm
Yeah.
hitting 43 next month, and I still don't know what to.
Yeah.
No one
I think
fucking
that's a
knows.
good
I don't
thing, though,
think.
you know,
Yeah.
to
I
realise that,
think
you know.
I think careers like that are for people like
Yeah.
that don't know what, like army, like that. It's adventure, and
Yeah.
that's what they think. Like that's, I don't know what I want to be, policeman.
And that was it. I joined
don't know.
the police at 20. I'd been at Dundee with doing electronic and computer engineering. I was only there 3 months. Came home and
Had
found out it was-
PTSD already from that.
It's Dundee, man. Dundee.
Fuck's sake.
No, I came home and found out it was had been accepted in the police.
Yeah.
Mum was I've told this story.
She
before.
wasn't happy, was she?
Police Academy.
No, Mum's a warrior, so she had actually opened my mail, and she
They're
was
always
crying.
right. They're always right,
That's a
though.
crime, mum, by the way. Open another person, mate. I'm a police officer now. I take it seriously.
You're going to jail. You're going to jail.
But she was visibly upset anyway.
Yeah.
I asked her what was wrong, and she apologised. She had opened my post and had been accepted into the police and the PSNI. And I was excited about it, you know.
You would be. You'd be like, yeah, I'm going to be fucking target practice.
Serpico, like. Fucking Serpico.
I suppose at the time I was only 20. I was only a kid. I didn't know. I didn't really understand the complexities of it, really. And then at 12th of January 2003, I started in Garnival. And again, I was the youngest in my squad. And I was just a fish out of water, absolutely. Grew up on the Ards Peninsula, knew very little about conflict.
Yeah.
Aye.
You know,
I suppose you're out of the way over there. It's like,
very much so, yeah.
You know what I
Gold
mean?
Coast, the main streets of Hawkeye.
in Portaferry Mafia.
But yeah,
Downtown Brooklyn, right there. Sick.
But so I came from a mixed marriage. You know, mum's Catholic, dad Protestant. You know, it was never an issue. Our house politics weren't
That's a
talked about
great,
in our house.
great home to grow up in Northern
Absolutely.
Ireland to like, you know, not be biased about anything.
It is, look.
So then 20 joined the police, and it was just baptism of fire. I was being educated about, you know, the threat the police officers are under.
Still in 2003, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Still
aye.
now.
Fucking right.
Still now, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know, and even like as I've spoke about before, I'm shitting myself doing this because I'm putting myself out there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if nobody does it,
Yeah.
what's going to change in this country?
Exactly.
I think-
that's a good mindset to have.
I
I'm
think,
appreciative
yeah.
of it.
I think the
to be honest.
country is shifting into that sort of mindset
Yeah.
where,
Hopefully.
A lot of things are definitely starting to change, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
In that aspect.
See, like, would you have felt safer in Protestant communities being police officers?
Yeah, you know, there's no point beating around the bush.
You would, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because, I
Like,
mean,
there's
we
no
grew
way,
up.
There's no way Catholic people were ever like, say if yous were outside patrolling or whatever, like, and even like, I don't know, there's a woman getting beaten in her house by her husband. Like, she, in my mind, she would probably take the beating before coming out and into the street and asking yous for help. At that time, you know what I mean?
In certain areas.
In Catholic areas, I mean, like,
yeah.
you know.
I think, I'm trying to think, Lola Pettigrew, I'm not sure if you've seen her BAFTA speech the other day.
No.
She chatted about underfunding, you know, it doesn't matter.
That's your one from Say Nothing, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I thought it was fantastic the way she spoke. She basically said it doesn't matter if it's on the green or the orange line. You know, we need better funding for healthcare, for social care, better housing for you know for working class families. You know, it doesn't matter what side of the line you claim to be on. They're issues right across the board.
Definitely.
Yeah, fuck the line at this point.
Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
It can only benefit us all to have faith in a police system that works, you know?
Any civilized
Yeah,
society
true.
needs police.
100%. See all that defund the police and all that crack. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, like anything, and I think maybe it is very prominent within police because yous are such a figure in society in the zeitgeist of having to protect people, and there is some bad police officers, obviously, you know.
Well,
but there's bad
there's
people in
assholes,
all
there's
aspects
assholes.
of jobs.
People are
it's
assholes.
just very
People are
easy
assholes.
to see.
But
it's very easy to see.
The
in the
unfortunate
police,
thing is
you
the
know?
bad ones are the only ones that get light shone on them.
You know, a
sometimes,
lot of the time.
Well,
A
the
lot
thing
of
is, the
time.
bad ones may, you know, they're just assholes, and they might have been,
people.
you know,
That's what I'm saying. It's-
really nice police officers to begin with, and then being fucked with or whatever. I don't know.
But then
That's true.
that's
You know,
subjective too,
there's-
because
Yeah.
I suppose the way I like to live my life, I suppose, and the way I like to act when I was in the police or in uniforms, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think if that's an important way
Treat
to be.
them the
Yeah,
way
like
you would
treat
want
people
treated.
the
like-
way you'd want to be treated.
It goes as simple as that scripture, doesn't it, really?
It's a
Like,
dangerous job.
you know?
I mean, there's
Yeah.
even like if people aren't out to get you, there's people out there to fuck with you. You know,
Yeah.
even children like fucking firing glass bottles at you,
Yeah,
at
true
the
that,
cars
like.
or whatever. I think I've seen some fucking officers being treated really badly, like even by just children, like, you know.
Yeah.
It was drummed into us, like, as
Yeah.
kids, that, like,
Very dangerous.
the police weren't there to help you.
Yeah.
You know?
We came from second generation troubles. Like
Yeah.
our mum and dad were in the troubles, and they moved down here when they were kids away from it.
Yeah.
So this neighborhood was made because to move people away from that and move people away from conflict. And then you grow up with stories and kids. Then we grew up very sectarian here. You know, like you like if you wore red, white, and blue, beaten. You know, and then. But I feel like that's now. It's good to see that people like us grew out of it.
Aye, we're not holding on to that shit. Like, not
a lot of people
did
that
shit.
But to just know that, like, as sectarian as this neighborhood could have been, especially when we were kids, we aren't at all anymore.
But that's right. But even past sectarianism, it was just you don't ring the police.
You didn't even know what sectarianism
Do you know
was.
what I mean?
You know,
it's just you don't. Whatever happens, you don't ring the police, which is such a fucking stupid way to live your life, because you're putting yourself in ridiculous amounts of danger and not thinking about the people that could help you because of something you've
been taught.
Not even been taught. It's just you've took on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you stay with that your whole life, you're done. Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, when I started working in North Belfast, which was my first station, and you had Ardoyne and the New Lodge, Shankill Estate,
all of it, like
Ballysillen.
Jesus.
Like, I can't even remember how many interfaces, but just an interface on every corner.
You
know,
that's the eye of the storm.
Like, I'll never forget with one of the first sort of weeks being there, and I was shown Manor Street. I'm not sure if you are aware of Manor
Heard of
Street.
it, yeah.
So Manor, you have green, orange, and orange Manor Street. So during the Troubles, there was a wall built in the middle of the street to separate the two communities.
Right.
This is mental. This is mental.
Fucking like imagine like coming out your front door and there's a wall down your fucking drive, and just over the wall.
But that's
Jesus Christ.
And then some sugar, Maeve.
You know, but that was the thing. I grew up not knowing any of that, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into this environment of conflict, and you know. And don't get me wrong, it's not like you went into the loyalist areas and they're glad to see you. They didn't want you either. They were run by paramilitaries as well, as well as an
right enough.
You know, so it wasn't that you were welcome in one side or the other. They didn't want to see the police. They don't want to see the police in those areas for one reason or the other. So that was a baptism of fire. Arriving up in this place, wet behind the ears, and all of a sudden it was just the hatred that the people had for each other and had towards the police. People looked at you and you knew they hated you. You know, they did not want you there.
And it's not always that you don't take that home. I know you don't let it affect you. It's like
but how could you not?
Us getting hateful comments or something, you know. At some,
I swear, Garth, like, no more talking to you. Fuck memory. No, but you know, actually, I feel the same way because I get hateful comments on YouTube.
I'm just talking.
I feel it.
Please hate on us.
How else am I supposed to
That is not
bring
the
us
same
down to
thing.
common ground?
Bring this motherfucker down.
Like, you know.
No, fucking PTSD from them comments.
But it must have been hard not to take that home, you know.
Just to sort of go back to what you're saying about people not ringing the police. That's what the point I was trying to make there was. They probably in the loyalist areas they probably would have rang a bit more, but not massively more. You know, like so that the Shankill Estate or your Ballysillen. When I first started, we got very few calls into Ardoyne. We got very few calls into the New Lodge. By the time I had left, there was definitely an increase. There was more. I wouldn't say acceptance, definitely not acceptance, but there was more. A bit more engagement with police, especially.
What year was that when you left?
Well, I left there in 2011, the end of 2011. I left.
I tell you the best time to be a policeman. What do you call it?
Hotels. That's it.
What do you policeman do?
That's the best time.
That's the South. You're retard.
Oh, right.
Sorry, flag up.
Wow.
Just say retard. No, cancelled. That's the South. The South's nothing to do here.
Still,
That's not the PSNI.
I know, like this. That's still. Oh my god! The police are just in the bars.
But they weren't even. They were just. And it was just the police station was a house.
I remember. We were doing a lock-in. This was in Donegal. We'd done a lock-in in one of the bars, and we were like, "Did the police let you do this?" This was like 4 o'clock in the morning.
We are the police.
We were like, "Well, there's only 2 policemen in the whole place, and they're sitting over there having."
Brilliant. Brilliant.
You know?
First class.
I don't think there's any crime in that town.
No crime.
There's literally no crime. I don't think anybody fucks with anybody. Like.
But it's funny, you know, it's literally a stone's throw across the border.
Actually? Yeah, actually.
It's the same as, you know, when we were chatting about it, Carlingford, Omeath, you know, it's the same. The police stations there, they're literally a house.
Yeah.
When I started in Thames Street, you have this blast barrier up. There's still holes in the wall where the station had been shot at.
Jesus
Antrim Road was the
Christ.
same. There's still holes in the wall.
See what I mean, like?
where the station had been shot at.
Jesus.
And, you know, I was literally 30 miles away, grew up 30 miles away, but might as well have been on the other side of the
Okay,
road.
so you've seen that contrast before you even started in the police, because where you were would have been that more chill,
Yeah, absolutely,
relaxed
yeah.
sort of communal police thing.
We didn't really
compared
see
to-
the police.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't see the police that often down sort of on the Arts Peninsula.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose because so far to the road, but
Yeah.
That must have been a big shock, like.
There wasn't a lot of crime.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
when I started,
Except for the sheep shagging.
hey, some beautiful looking sheep.
Fucking, have you been down there? Have you not seen them?
Oh, they're great.
Fucking hell, the sun gets
Beyonce, the Beyonce sheep down there.
Fucking Beyonce stinking, move on.
But no, it was an eye opener for me, because I went from one environment where the very low crime. I'd went into Carnival where this was drummed into you about the threat and about, you know, simple things like you can't wash your uniform and hang it in the line because
Right
you'll be
enough.
identifying
Oh, yeah.
yourself.
Right enough. So you mean
You know,
shit you wouldn't think about?
Driving home, you know, being more vigilant.
Is that like a really major thing? You know, to keep yourself.
Then, yeah.
You know, to keep yourself.
Even now.
now.
Even now, yeah.
Don't tell anybody.
It's
you're a
only
policeman.
like
Yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable with saying what I did,
Yeah.
but I'm doing it but I think for the right reasons, because
100%. You can tell you're genuine.
It's a
Like,
strange thing that you can't be proud of, or not proud's the wrong word, but can't like kind of show your valor in that sense
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
you know of what you
Is that
achieved
just
in
here?
life, you know.
is that just here?
well, if you are a guard in the south and somebody asks you what do I do, I'm a guard.
Yeah.
If you are in the Met in London, what do you do? I'm a Met officer and police officer. Over here, I was an electrician for 21 years.
Right,
You know,
right,
so
yeah,
there is.
yeah. So
you
it
do
is
have that
sort of
cover
just here.
I was very fortunate growing up where I did, because when I joined the police, everybody knew. So down home, such a rural community, people knew I was in the police, and it didn't really bother me.
Yeah.
I
But
suppose
you
because it
imagine,
was over there, it was locked off. We bit. It didn't really
Yeah.
travel around.
well, you imagine, and I'll obviously not say where we are, but we're in a nationalist estate.
You're the first person that's been able to not
Yeah.
say where we are.
Thank you
And that's
very
the
much.
policeman in you. You're really
I said that to
vigilant
him.
about
I
that.
said that to him once earlier, and you just clocked it in your head. And been like,
You know, but we're in a nationalist estate.
Yeah.
That, you know, I was very uncomfortable driving here.
Yes.
This morning.
100%.
But we're in a nationalist estate, so you imagine if one of your neighbours had joined the police and there's murals on the wall there, there's, you know, all sorts of flags flying, there's stuff on everywhere which is threatening to his or her life. Why would they tell anybody in the fear that somebody
Yeah, I
will
wouldn't
arrive
like-
here
to give
some
that some weight, right? You can't tell anybody you're a policeman from here, right? But we've known countless people that have been like, I'm in Iraq,
Yeah.
and it's been like,
well done.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's been a thing you can wear on your sleeve around
Yeah.
here, you know, and like you can't say you're a policeman. Jesus,
Isn't that mad?
that's a mad
That is
contrast. like.
mad, like.
It is. It's
And like, would you still?
strange.
I'm sure you had to get up and like check for bombs and shit in your car in the morning before you got on, like before you
Again,
get in
I
your car.
spoke about this before. That's how your day started.
Aye.
Your day started. You went out and you checked your car.
So I mean, you're already putting yourself in like such a fucking.
Even before going out the door, you always looked out the door to make sure there was nobody lurking there. There's nothing out of place.
Yeah.
You then went and checked your car, and you checked the car, trying to hide that you were doing that because you didn't want your neighbours seeing that.
Yeah.
You then got in the car and drove to work, and you could just feel the closer I would have got to Belfast, the more vigilant I would have become.
Yeah.
And then certainly the closer you got to the station, that hypervigilance, you know,
Yeah, kicking in.
really kicks in. You then get changed and you go out and do that job, and you're maybe, you know, where I worked, and again, I can only speak about my experiences of policing
Yeah.
in North Belfast, West Belfast. But you went and you were dealing with conflict. You were maybe dealing with riots. You were dealing with that heightened threat in those
Yeah.
areas, and just people not wanting to see you. People
Yeah.
throwing
Yeah.
stones at you. You know, driving into Ardoyne. You drove in. You couldn't have went into Ardoyne or the New Lodge without having a brick or a bottle thrown at you. It just wouldn't happen. And
100%.
a
Like.
lot of times it was just kids.
Yeah.
A lot of times, not always.
Yeah.
But you then finish your shift, dealing with that crap all day. You get in your car, you drive home, and again, you're absolutely panicking coming out of the station because it's a vulnerable point. You know,
right enough.
a lot of attacks happen when people are keeping that routine and keeping those rules.
Yeah,
So
you're the
you're
same.
always that bit vulnerable in doing that. So you then drove home, hoped that nobody
Followed you. Fucking hell.
Right.
to get up the next morning and do it all over again.
Do it all over
so
again.
That's
There's no rest.
No, there's no
rest. Do you know what I mean?
I've said it before. Actually, and the reason it comes to mind is because it's a line I put in the book. Police in Northern Ireland, you don't take your uniform off and hang it in the locker and go home and forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's nearly, although you've taken your uniform off, you are still a police officer and you have to remain vigilant that whole time.
100%.
And I feel quite bad saying that at the minute because there's a recruitment process going on, and I would still say it's the best job in the world. I loved it. I loved every part of my policing career. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud.
Experience, like.
Yeah.
Well, no matter what
Yeah, it sounds
anybody
like-
thinks, you'd done something. You know,
Yeah.
whether they thought it was for good or bad, it definitely
And
changed and is changing as like Northern Ireland as a place, because like you were saying, your son is becoming a police officer, and
No, he's talked about
it.
wanting to join the police.
Yeah.
so like you're trying to make this, by doing this, you're trying to make this a better place for your son to be
and
a
even
policeman.
yourself, you can only know yourself, and each individual police officer can only know this yourself. And I take you as a genuine, honest person, you know, that during your time as a police officer, that was your outlook anyway, of making a better difference, a better place. I'm going to go out and treat everybody fairly, and you know, that's what we need.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we need. We need more people living in the moment like that, you know.
Yeah. I suppose when I didn't get it right all the time, absolutely not. I flipping messed up. There's probably people out there, undoubtedly there is, that thought I was a dick because I was doing my job. But I like to think that even when I was doing that, I was still courteous. I still treated them with the respect.
The thing is, you're only human, and you're going to get into conflict with
not
people.
perfect.
You know,
Of course, like
Plus, like, I don't want to say what we do for a living, but in our job and many jobs like it, there's corners you have to cut to make the day go faster or to make things easier. You know, you're always going to have to do something like that may not, from an outsider looking in, looks bad, but to be honest, it's not really that bad, and it's like, you know, it's just to make things easier for everybody.
Well, how I've ended up sitting here today, you know, as part of my journey, which is still ongoing, and that's not that it started, but Michael Patterson, the psychologist, put me on a route, and he said to me, how many people do you know within the PSNI who have been shot? And I said to Michael, a handful, not very many. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, how many do you know within the PSNI who have been shot and went on to work in the role that you did, in that counter-terrorism role? I said, nobody. I'm the only one, as far as I'm aware, that has done it. He says, well, isn't that a fantastic story?
Something to genuinely be proud
I'm very
of.
proud of my career, but I'm not sitting here saying, well, look at me, I'm the big lad. That's not the case. What I am saying is I did that job to help people. And what I'm doing now is I'm trying to do this to try and help people, to try and raise awareness around the mental health and the lack of the mental health support, not only within policing, but within society. You know, I'm talking about policing. You look at paramedics, you know, the firemen and women who are dealing with trauma all the time, nursing, you know, nurses, doctors, people working in the health professions. You know, they're the unsung heroes. And if we're not getting the support, you know, if people day and daily aren't getting the support, those people in those sort of high profile roles, they need that bit more support. So what's been done around that?
Well, I think people like yourself talking about this just goes to show, and like there's people that would watch this, would probably be from national estates and stuff, that would have that opinion of the police, a predisposition opinion, you know, and just you talking the way you're talking is like, you know, look.
Yeah, I think that, like we were saying before, that's, you know, one of the biggest parts of it is to be, and then to be, you know,
because to us, growing up in a community like this, the policemen, they're up here, they're not, they're on a different level. You can't talk to them, you know, and us literally sitting here talking to you,
by
it's
doing
like
podcasts,
they're okay, you know.
And then you can sit and obviously, you know, from a certain angle, you get to know somebody by watching a podcast. You can get a gauge of them, you know, and a lot of people, like you just said, would have this preconceived idea of what all policemen are like, even their personality, everything, and then they can watch this and see that it's not like that.
Well,
you know?
again, that's part of this journey. We've chatted about my son. He's 17 tomorrow, and he talked about
Happy birthday.
wanting to join the police at some point, and that may or may not happen. I don't know how I feel about it, but
How do you, like, what was your first sort
I
of
know
initial?
you said your mum and dad were very
So what was your initial?
do you know what? Policing's been very good to me. I've had a great career through policing, through its ups and downs, but it has been very good to me.
Yeah.
I'll support him, any of the kids, any of our children, I'll support them in what they do. And if that's what he wants to do, I'll fully support him. But I suppose taking that back to me, what can I do to make that job better? How can I break down those barriers? So by doing this, hopefully I'm making that job safer. And hopefully I'll, as you said, people in a nationalist community or wherever will see me and think, do you know what, I'm not going to join the riot, or it's not all this flipping,
Well,
and
All that shit needs to stop.
we're in a different time. We're in a different time now. Like,
Goodbye.
like I said, us growing out of that, everybody in our generation is starting to grow out of that. There are wee handfuls of communities that'll take a long time to grow out of it because they're just inherent.
People didn't stop slavery for a long time after it was illegalized. It'll take
That's
a
where we
while.
got Jake from.
too far, man, too far.
It's still going on. Telling you.
We're now his owners.
I was one of those, the black kids who went missing in Haiti.
Yeah,
The sex trafficking, that was me. I just got out of the container.
No.
This was a whole undercover operation.
Just bust out of the table.
No, Joe, that's part of the thing I want to do. I'm obviously writing a book at the minute. I read a chapter of the book at the Black Box probably about 6 months ago, and afterwards the amount of people that came to me and said, we don't know enough about this. One lady, an older lady, what year was this? And when I said this was 2003, she was shocked. And all that story was a story of me leaving my house on the Arts Peninsula to go drive to North Belfast, and about the process I went through of checking my car and that vigilance. And, it was a simple story. It was a nothing story. But the amount of people that came to me afterwards and said, we don't hear enough about this. We need more people speaking about this.
Those people think that's
we do.
like in the past. They think that's like the 70s.
Long gone,
Remember that used to happen?
But it would be
1990
nice
stopped,
it'd be nice for police to not have to do that. You know what I mean? It'd be nice for
Do you still? Would you ever find yourself still checking your car when you go outside?
Yeah.
No.
Well, he spent an hour around his estate scoping it out, of course. I was going to say, can you talk about the shot?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. If you don't mind telling that story again,
being shot,
if you don't mind, like.
Yeah. Do you need tissues?
Just wank ones.
He has an all-round year cold.
That's a sock, mate.
I can only find that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one. Raphael's getting it tonight.
So being shot, that was 2010, 11th of July 2010.
Fuck.
Okay.
Day before the 12th and 11th of July, did you say? Yeah.
So we'd started duty that morning. I was part of a public order unit within North Belfast. And Broadway had kicked off over in the west, Donegal Road and around that. It was quite heavy over there, fighting. Water cannons had been dispatched over there, so we were essentially it for North Belfast. And then the calls started coming in, small groups gathering, different interfaces. We were sent down to North Queen Street, where a group had been gathering. They'd been throwing some rubble and stuff up towards the interface there at the Limestone Road, the interface with Tigers Bay. So we arrived down, 2 crews of us. The unit was split at that time. We arrived and we became the focus of the attack then. They started throwing bricks, bottles, bits and pieces at us. And the inspector in charge of the unit tried to speak to one of the community reps, Sinn Féin community rep at that time. But he was quite clear he had no control over them. And it was probably unfair of him putting him in that position as well. at that time, but we managed to pull back a bit to try and monitor things, and the crowd made their way down. A few of the crowd made their way down, intending to go towards the Tigers Bay. So we had to get out of the trucks and start trying to push them back. And it just became hand-to-hand fighting. It just became... initially, we couldn't even get shields out. It was just literally hand-to-hand fighting with a group of maybe a dozen or so, a few dozen, trying to keep them back. Eventually, we were supported by the other crews in the unit. We managed to get a shield line in, and then it just escalated. It just became hot and heavy. Bricks, bottles, heavy masonry, just everything raining on us. A few shields had been broken, and one of the officers with me, she had never been in a riot before, and I'll never forget like the fear in her face.
Fucking hell, yeah.
You know, again, I was in my 20s. I'm not saying I'm Billy Big Balls or you know, but
I'm sure you wanted to protect her, like, in some
you
way.
did, and you wanted to be involved and stuff too. You know, you wanted to be.
I get you. Yeah.
Want to do your job. Look,
Yeah.
preferred like you were doing it.
The adrenaline was up. You know, you're in it was one of those situations, one of those fight or flight situations.
Aye.
And I've never shied away from a fight. You know, I haven't started any intentionally, but I've never shied away from one. And this was one of those occasions where you had to stand and be counted. So it ended up into a full-scale riot. We were eventually supported by another TSG, another public order unit, who arrived down behind us. And the inspector, there's a few mistakes made on that night, but the inspector decided that we were going to take the junction of Spalmount Street, and the other unit would push down North Queen Street. And sorry,
You're right.
the unit would push down North Queen Street and take the other sort of battlefront, if you will. We had two battlefronts at this stage. So as we took the junction, I heard shortly after taking that Spalmount Street junction, I just heard those words, "Gunman, gunman," and then a loud bang. The crowd cheering. I'll never forget that. The crowd cheered just after the bang.
Jeez.
Fuck.
And I turned to the guy beside me and said, "Fuck mate, that was close." And no sooner were the words out of my mouth, and I just felt pain. I actually thought I'd been hit with a breeze block. I felt my arm had. It felt like my arm had exploded, but it hadn't. But a lot of pain. The shield I had been carrying was now at a trail. I couldn't hold it up. I had the presence of mind to get myself into hardcover because there was, at this point, I knew there was a ballistic threat. You know, there'd been a shot fired. I didn't know I'd been shot.
That's what I was going to say. So you didn't realise even?
No, not at this point. And then once I got in behind the truck, one of the other trucks in behind hardcover, there was another inspector who had been sent down to try and get a grip of the situation. I said to him, "Boss, I think I've been hit." He started ripping the pads off me, and then I could feel blood welling up inside my blue suit. I could feel blood running down my chest, and I knew then I was injured. I still wasn't 100% sure I'd been shot, but I knew
You knew something had hit you or
yeah, I knew it was
stabbed
badly
her.
hurt. Wasn't sure if it was a blast bomb or something like that, because I felt this blast wave wash over me.
Yeah.
You know, as the shot went
So
off.
you're thinking maybe shrapnel even or
thought
something?
Yeah, sure, like something like that, like a pipe
So
bomb or
where
something.
were you hit again?
So all down my left hand side, my arm, my chest, and my abdomen. I still have 42 pieces of shrapnel.
Fuck.
Oh, so it was
So
one
was
shot.
it a shotgun?
Shotgun, yeah.
Shotgun.
So I
Fuck's
took 50,
sake.
50 in total. 50 pellets.
From what,
So
distance
what
would that
kind of
have been?
shot was it? The birdshot ones with like all the balls?
Yeah.
Fuck.
What distance would that have been, that shot?
4 meters away.
4 meters away?
That close?
Holy
Holy shit.
fuck.
Yeah.
So that's why you felt the wave of blast. So it
Yeah.
wasn't a single shot that hit you. It was actually...
Yeah, it was that blast. wave
Shit,
with the
man.
shotgun.
It's mad that someone felt the need to shoot someone like
Yeah.
that. Like,
Oh,
why?
what the
That's
Jesus.
insane. Like, you know.
That's what, like we
Insane.
said before, you know, there's
Insane.
other ways to do
That's
things, you know what I mean? It's not the way to go. Like,
Fucking insanity.
And then everyone cheering after, you know.
I know. I actually
Like,
seen the
Jesus.
footage after it, and it's quite clear. He makes his way from the back of the crowd, with the shotgun in the air, sawn-off shotgun. He comes round the corner. It's out of sight at that point. The shot goes off, and then the crowd cheer. And
there was no shots fired before this?
no.
Like, I mean, that's so reckless. Like, that gives rise for then the fucking police to start shooting people.
Yeah.
That's so silly to fucking shoot.
We know.
Sorry, I'm just processing this.
I'm only joking.
So yeah, then realised then I was badly hurt, and there was a police car sitting on down North Queen Street. I ran down to it with the inspector and said to the guy in the car, "You run me to the hospital. I think I've been shot here, or hurt." He took me up to the Mater Hospital, and when we got there was like a crash team waiting. So obviously the radioed ahead, made them aware that there's possibly somebody coming in with a gun wound. This crash team waiting, they got me on the bed and wheeled me into resus. The nurses started cutting the blue suit away from me, and I could see my arm was quite badly mutilated, and I could see the blood, I could see the holes. They weren't big holes, but plenty of holes on my chest and my
They're
abdomen.
none punctured anywhere, like through lungs or anything, or
So I had 3 entered my lower abdomen, travelled diagonally up through me, and came to rest between my pancreas and my spleen.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I was very lucky.
Jesus.
The main blast was my arm, so I was starting to get compartment syndrome. My hand was starting to close over.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so it done nerve damage then? It done.
Oh yeah, I've a lot of nerve damage left arm.
So you were lucky you kept the hand then?
Well,
The
I don't
damage,
know.
or-
I think very fortunate that the surgeon who was on duty, a guy Mark Taylor, was phenomenal. He done a great job.
It's just my partner coming in, by the way. Don't.
Yeah, don't worry. Don't come to get you. Don't
Here we
worry.
go.
Get your other arm
I know, like, fuck's sake.
She was at work there.
I know. Where did we get to there? Sorry.
You just got
Surgeon?
into the surgeon cutting it off your arm there.
Yeah, so yeah, sort of go back. The nurses started cutting my blue suit off. They put a line into me, and there's an older nurse. I could see her, she was squeezing the bag of fluids, and she kept saying, "Stay with me, stay with me."
Jeez.
I thought, "Fuck, I'm not going anywhere." And I genuinely didn't realise I was as badly injured.
The adrenaline would have.
Yeah, we'd been fighting probably for quite a wee while at that point.
Yeah.
And I was dehydrated, and so at that point though, I looked down at my hands and they were grey. Do you ever see a corpse?
Yeah,
It's that
yeah.
grey, and I thought, flip, maybe I'm not as good as I think here. And that's when they come in. Mr. Taylor, the surgeon, said, "We're bringing you in. We're going to operate on you." They suspected I had internal bleeding, and obviously the hand starting to that compartment syndrome.
Yeah.
So I didn't want anyone ringing mum and dad. So
Yeah.
I rang home, rang the house phone, and dad answered the phone. He was actually looking after my 2 children who were very young at that stage. And he answered the phone, and I said, "Don't be panicking, but I'm in hospital." He said, "Right, okay, what's wrong with you?" I said, "Don't be panicking, but I've been shot." He says, "Right, okay," and he hung up the phone. And I thought, fuck, he took that well.
Jesus.
And that was fine. Seconds later, the phone rang back, and he obviously was sleeping, didn't realise.
I was half asleep.
Yeah, he was
Thought
half
he was
asleep
dreaming,
then, and
but
you just didn't process it.
Yeah,
Fuck.
rang to make sure that I was okay. They panicked then. Mum and dad panicked, wanted to get up to the hospital, but they couldn't. It was, this maybe sounds dramatic, but it was, as far as I was concerned, it was a war zone. They're rioting just
100%. Yeah.
Aye, just for safety, look.
500 yards away. They were rioting in West Belfast. So that was pretty much it. They took me in for surgery, and I have no idea if it was the next day or a couple of days later. My first sort of memories. I think it was the next day, but very groggy, very sore.
Some more deal.
That was
Mad,
it.
look.
Yeah.
Now, did this lead into you quitting the police force? Is that what led to that decision?
No,
Sure,
no.
he was
No, sure, that was
discharged
fucking
medically before
ago.
that.
This was 2000. This was 2010.
That was 2010.
You left in 2011.
I didn't want that to be the end of my story.
Oh, right, you didn't, right.
No. So I suppose I've always wanted to be in the middle of things. I didn't join the police to hand out parking tickets or I was never like, my admin was always crap. I'm sure there's a few people who vouch for that, but that was never my bag. I always wanted to be in the middle of things. So I'd always wanted to move into counterterrorism. Always wanted to become a CTSFO.
So you moved
That will segue us into that nicely. Are you able to talk about that?
I'll talk around it, but I'll not talk about specifics.
Okay.
So it was your decision then to move up. You weren't medically discharged from the PSNI.
No, well,
Not then.
you've been a police officer up until just recently, yeah?
Yeah. So last year, 4th April last year. So
a different section of the police.
Yeah.
force.
So that was my uniform career essentially over.
Right.
I was off work for 10 months, and my arm was being packed for a number of months afterwards. It was sort of lying open for a while. So that was going on, and then I came back, was due to go on further training. So I'm faffing this up, but prior to me being shot, I should have started what's called further training at the time. So I'd already done an assessment to go on to that, and then was shot and was off for 10 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'd been off, I had to go on assessment again. So came back to work in June the following year. I think it was start of June, and went to the public order inquiry team, which was based out of Antrim Road, and the boss were very good to me. As I say, that was something I didn't want somebody taking my career away from me. I loved it. I loved the place right up until I left. Even now, I look back, I'm very proud of what I've done. I'm very proud of the stuff I've been involved in. And I know that anything I've done with the best intention, so, but I didn't want somebody ending my career. I wanted to...
you wanted to have the say in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I applied again for further training and went on selection. And then joined the unit in March, the 12th of March 2012 then.
So in contrast to just being in a uniform police officer, what was the transition
Counter-terrorism,
like?
yeah.
What was this like in contrast then?
Or at least what can you tell us?
Not more paperwork, was it?
No.
Jesus,
No.
no.
So
I would
it
say
was-
so.
No.
No, so it was. So I was HMSU, which was, I suppose, sounds a bit silly, but like the tip of the spear. So there was a lot of work went on in the background, and if there was something bad going to happen, then we would have went in and stopped it from happening. Sort of that sort of 11th hour. So a bad guy going to shoot another bad guy, an attack on police, whatever. We would have done the work around that and stopped that. So it was it was a dangerous job, but it was the best job in the place. I loved it. It was cool. You get to do.
Sounds like you're doing something that's fucking changing. It's drastic. You're
Whereas you are listening to all of our phones then and all of our messages. What I'm hearing.
No, it was like I know in doing the job that I did or was involved in, that undoubtedly we've saved lives and helped people and have made Northern Ireland better. Today we've stopped some very bad people doing some very bad things. You look at the minute, there's the UMA stuff is going on. You're listening to the first responders, the victims of that, the families of what happened in '98 at the UMA atrocity.
Yeah.
Be under no illusion, there is people in this in this country who would like to see, I'm not saying see another UMA, but they would like to see another attack of a police officer or, a police station blown up or, so I know that in the work that we've done, we've stopped and thwarted a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I think that is just like...
People still think
needs
they're
to
fighting
be,
a war.
Yeah, it needs to be.
People out there like...
We're fucking human beings at the end of the
But
day. Like, we need
would
to
you
move
say
past
as
that
well,
shit. Like,
I know what you've done in your career, you've tried to maintain the best standards, but would you say you've seen anything?
have you ever seen
Has
anything?
there been policemen that still think they're fighting a war? Because some of them are, but
It's the same as vice versa. Like, have you ever seen something that in your mind was totally morally incorrect from your point of view?
That's a tricky one because it's all subjective too, because it's like we chatted about before, that fight or flight. People have different levels of that.
That's
so
true.
Exactly. So it's just your perspective could
absolutely.
be wrong.
Yeah. So if just because you see something on the news and it's a police officer attacking somebody, but you maybe haven't seen the context of that, or you
Exactly.
haven't
It's
seen
all
the
about the
build-up to it.
context.
100%. And the other thing is, have police got it right all the time? Absolutely not.
Yeah, of course not. No, it's
nobody
wrong on both
has.
sides,
We're all
like.
human.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know, have I got it right? Absolutely not. Have I done stuff that I've, on reflection, have looked back and thought I could have dealt with that a lot
Plus,
better?
standards and practices are always evolving. You know,
Yeah.
something that you could have done 10 years ago, you probably can't do now.
No.
You know,
I know if I was a police officer, I'd be a really
I'd be a bad
asshole.
one. I'd be a bad
I would
one.
be a big
I'd be bad. Like,
I'd
I'd be
be
bad.
just like you are in real life.
I'd pull
but it's
people
just-
over and just take all their shit just because. Like,
You're in around me.
I already did it. Right. No, but yeah, like, so you're saying that really, obviously, you've seen things that maybe could have been handled in a different manner, but the person doing the thing came from a place that they thought was the correct operation to do at the time.
Yeah.
But you've never seen anybody maliciously act wrong, is I think what Gareth was asking, you know, as a police officer.
I can't think of any one time where I've seen somebody go out of their way. You know, I get asked before, when people went into the nationalist area, were they treating people
Differently,
differently? I'd never seen that. You know,
Yeah.
I always like to think that I treated people the way I would want my family treated.
Yeah.
You know, anyone that works with me will know that I never shied away from a fight. If something had to get physical, you know, then I get physical. And I was very fortunate that I had a good bunch of guys around me, and I learned from really good police officers. But that being said, wouldn't have started. Wouldn't have went out of our way to.
But and that's another thing. Like, that's how police could easily be kind of, you know, not manipulated, but, you know, like you're watching footage of a police officer maybe go bump, you know. But like you said, you're not seeing the context of that. You're not seeing what happened before. That police officer is being trained to deal with shit like this, and, you know, I mean, if he's getting attacked or whatever, he's gonna, you know, retaliate and sort that out.
Sort of brings me to like a personal thing I had with a police officer. It's the only time that I had like a physical. Only time I had a
That's time for
physical
us to vent.
altercation with an officer, and at the time I couldn't understand why. But like looking back, it was like obviously we were a bunch of dickheads. So like it was the Holy Lands, and it was a Paddy's Day Holy Lands riot. Like I nearly got expelled from uni and all for just being. I wasn't part of the riot.
Yeah.
I was honestly just trying to get home, but you couldn't. It was pandemonium. Like there was no getting through anything, and my street was blocked off by a line of police officers, and I was drunk. Like, but I just wanted to go home. And I was trying to reiterate to them that I'm not part of this here madness going on. I just want past you so I can go to my house right there, you know. And obviously that wasn't happening because I could be anybody, do you know what I mean? And it ended up with me getting hit round the back of the legs a couple of times with a baton.
Right.
So I left it.
I'll leave it.
This time I'm not bothered. But I just remember
Actually, I
like,
live there.
That's what
you know what I mean?
Just
But I was
remember.
thinking at the time I had this thing of like, why the fuck would they do that to me?
Yeah.
You know, when I was just trying to get home.
Don't go over
When
to
I
a
was
squad
trying
of
to get home,
policemen in battle
But
mode.
this is what I'm saying exactly. So when you look back at it when you're not 18 years of
Drunk.
age and you look back, I was a drunk individual, maybe with another couple of people behind me who were trying, and they were getting bottles through at them. There was people fucking doing whatever, and I was like, "Excuse me, can I?" Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So obviously they're like no,
somebody-
what are they gonna do? Just part the fucking sea and go, go ahead.
And then-
He's sitting
and
there
then
being
50
as
more
nice
riders
as
get
pie.
back.
He's being as nice as pie, but a police officer out of earrings just walks up, "You cheeky bastard!" He's like, "No, he
But you
was
know
a
what I mean?
nice
It's that it is that context of not the context of what I was doing, but I didn't understand until later the context of that person's mindset and what they had to do in that moment. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas like obviously he couldn't let me by because I could be fucking anybody.
Yeah.
How does he know that I live there? How does he know that I'm not part of
that's
this?
it.
You know
Yeah,
what
but
I mean?
in your defense, so you were drunk, like, so.
Yeah, but
I mean,
That's not in his
no
defense.
excuse.
That's in his
yeah,
offense.
you know. But I
Yeah,
wasn't.
I suppose that's it difficulty. You know, you put yourself in that police officer's, you know, shoes. They're standing there during a public order situation, and there's another drunk guy coming.
and all I'm thinking was, I just
nothing
wanna
to
go
do with this.
home.
I just
You know
wanna
what I
go
mean?
home,
Yeah,
you know. I don't know. I can't. I wasn't there. I don't know. Like,
no, there's
you
no
know.
way. Like,
Plus-
if they had looking back at that situation, say like it would have took 3 police officers maybe to move out of the way and let me by. if they had done that, then whatever they were stopping the mob from getting, they were just poured through. Like, do you know what I mean? So it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But it's just funny how even yourself can look at a situation very differently. You know
I
what
think
I mean?
you have to, and I think that comes with a bit of age and a bit of maturity too, where you have to look at things reflectively. You have to sort of look back and
100%,
think, you know, so we chatted about it earlier, how even the mental health stuff, how can you be better tomorrow than you were today?
I think
Well, by
that's the goal, isn't
reflecting on how I am today, well, you know what, I lay into 10 o'clock today. See, tomorrow I'm going to get up at 9 o'clock and go for a
You're
walk.
talking that on the Andrew Rand's like critical thinking.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Critical thinking.
Yeah.
The whole-
What a way to be. You know?
Yeah,
I
funny. I
always
didn't
be a
expect.
critical
Andre
thinker,
asked
you
me
know.
about critical thinking, and I had a whole set piece around critical thinking that I'd worked to try and take those skills from policing into the corporate world, because that's another sort of string to the bow that I'm trying to play at the minute. But I didn't expect a question on it, so when he asked me about critical thinking, then I thought,
What is
I
critical
stumbled through it. But it's essentially it's that reflective practices. You know, how do we think we look critically at what we're doing and how can we make that better? We reflect on that and we try and put better practices in place. You know, and it's just one of those.
It goes.
We take that into every aspect of life. You know,
Exactly.
You have
I think
to.
that bleeds out of like a lot of people's beliefs on the world. So I think it was even someone like, you know, your guy, what's his name, Sidguru. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's like one of those Indian sort of gurus, but he said something very similar to you, which was, if you can sit at the edge of your bed every night and one night go to yourself, there's nothing I need to do better tomorrow, then that's it. You've ascended, you're done. You don't have to live your life anymore, because that's never going to happen.
Of course not.
As a human being, you have to be able to sit on the edge of your bed and go, what did I do and what can I do better about it tomorrow?
What have I done wrong?
You know, maybe not necessarily wrong, but just even treat someone better, you know, get through a situation a bit better than you did that day, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
That's the way to be.
That's what we have to do.
You have to, because otherwise you have it nailed, and none of us have it
Exactly.
nailed.
And if you
Nobody
think
has
you have it nailed, then
you need to look at
what I mean?
yourself.
You need
One
to
thing I
look
remember
at-
talking to you on the phone about was a training session that went wrong for you. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, certainly. So that was I would say probably that was the start of my real spiral. That was
Towards your PTSD and like
that was
really,
the straw that broke the camel's back.
Okay.
We were doing a training exercise in Belfast Lough. I was climbing from an inflatable rib up the side of a cargo ship, oil tanker type ship, on caving ladders, which they're small wire ladders which were fixed up onto the side of the ship. As I was climbing up, there was a few mishaps anyway, but I essentially got halfway, 3/4 of the way up the ship and couldn't go any further for one reason or the other, and fell into the water. There was a few failings with the safety equipment whereby I should have probably only fallen a meter and then been able to reset and go again. However, I didn't. I fell into the water. I was wearing a flak jacket and had a rifle slung, ballistic helmet, and although essentially it was nothing at the time, I did hurt myself, hurt my shoulder and hurt my arm, but I thought I was going to drown.
Yeah.
I was
Which isn't
fished
a
out of
nice
the water. You know, the guys got me out of the water. It was fine. And I was laughing and joking about it. That night I never slept. I thought I was drowning. Woke up I don't know how many times, and that just escalated. I wasn't sleeping then and that's, I suppose, just that trauma. Those
as
years
you
of
said,
trauma.
this is just the one trauma that went. Look, now you've got like a million of these. Do you want, you know,
Yeah, it's built
there you
up
go,
over
bang.
time. Like built up over time.
all that stuff that you'd never dealt with.
Yeah.
And you know, if you had to ask me, I'm fine. Laughing and joking about it. You know, flipping dick fell into the water. You know, that was
Funny,
that
isn't it? It's like that death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So that was it. That was the start. That was shortly after that, the Cave Hill experience that I chatted about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely. It was probably the first time where I thought, you're not Superman. You're not, invincible.
Yeah.
And what year was this? Sorry, the training.
This was 2022, end of 2022.
So like very recently, sort
Yeah.
of.
Mhm.
Yeah. It was,
Yeah.
See, it took that long for it all to really come to realization that there was
Probably
something.
Probably a culmination of my attitude of just suck it up and get on with it.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
And being in the front lines and
Pushing
being there.
it all down there.
yeah.
You know.
When you're in flight, well, you were in fight or flight, like really were.
Yeah.
Whereas
For
people
20 years.
like
yeah.
me who have a panic attack and don't know what fight or flight is,
Yeah.
and I'm just having fight or flight because it's inherently in us as humans.
Yeah.
But you were literally in that.
Yeah.
And you had to fight or flight. So
There was a lion outside the cave. Fuck's sake, you know.
Yeah. But that was so that was the start of it, really. That was as I say, the straw that broke the camel's back.
yeah.
And then obviously the therapy started, and I started to address what was wrong with me. Really embarrassed about it because, again, in that male environment,
Yeah, it makes
I
you
was-
feel less than, like.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was probably a big enough character in the unit. You know, I was very vocal. I've been the first one to slobber, first one to have a bit of a joke. And looking back now, I realised that was my mask. That was me. I was hiding behind that. You know,
Yeah.
that's Stothers slobbering about this or slobbering about that. You know, that was my mask.
Yeah.
So I started dealing with it anyway, started the therapy bits and pieces, and all of a sudden realised my police career was over here. And that in itself brought a wave of problems, because all of a sudden I was a police officer since I was 20. I was then an HMSU man working in Special Operations Branch, you know, since I was, you know, early 30, 29, 30, whatever. And now that ride's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you have like the mindset of I am a police officer, or was it I
very much
work
so.
as a police offer? You know,
No,
it's like
I
I am
Yeah.
part of your
'cause
that's your
personality,
identity.
your identity.
Yeah.
You know, what I
You're
mean?
literally bringing, you know, I suppose, like you said, you're bringing it home with you. You
Yeah.
are bringing that,
We have
you
to
know,
live
that
it.
endangerment
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff, you know. Fucking-
And again, like, I think it's very, very important to emphasise that I'm only talking about my experiences
Yeah, of course.
policing in Northern Ireland. I've worked in some quite, very rough areas. I've worked in areas of high conflict. I have friends and colleagues who have worked and been stationed in Newtonards or Bangor or wherever, Hollywood, and have never dealt with, you know, those the conflict side of things
Yeah.
that I may
Yeah.
have, and I've had a very
Yeah.
different experience to me. Now, that's not to say the officers working in those areas haven't seen some horrendous things, because let's face it, you ring the police when you're having a bad day. You don't want them.
Yeah.
They're not there on your
They're not
best
coming.
day.
Yeah, they're not coming
You know,
round for fucking
you know,
wish happy birthday. Like.
so police
That's
officers
it.
in those areas still see horrendous things, you know, and I never want to take away from that. But these are my experiences of policing within Northern Ireland, working in those probably more difficult areas.
Yeah.
And sorry,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so when there was that realization that my journey's over now, my policing career is over, and that was massive.
That's like, who are you now? It's
Well,
like,
exactly.
who am I?
Yeah.
I'm a policeman. No, you're not.
Yeah.
So who are you?
And you
know?
start that grieving process. You know, it's like a
Yeah.
death.
You lose
nearly,
yourself,
because-
yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And I suppose that's in doing this now. That's what I'm trying to do. You know, this is my new, I suppose, adrenaline sitting here.
Opening a new book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
New chapter of your life.
Yeah. And I joined the police to help people. When I was in the police, I always tried to help people. I went into the specialist role to try and make a difference. And I suppose in the same vein, that's what I want to do now. I want to try
And in an ironic, weird twist, you are still on the front lines fighting the rally. You know? So it's like, this is your version of it. You're just a fucking glutton for
But no, I'm very much like, well, what can I do to make a difference around the mental health side of things? I know we have talked about it, but I'm trying to raise awareness around the PTSD, especially around the blue light sort of side of things. You know, I'm trying to, you know, there's no funding out there for anybody. There's no funding for housing, for flipping social care.
Yeah.
But within policing, within the paramedic services, for the ambulance services, within the hospitals, there's no support networks. You know, or the support networks are very underfunded. So what can I?
Why
try to
is
do?
that? Like, because that seems to be very, very, very prevalent in all aspects of people that give their fucking life, not their life, but risk their stability.
Yeah.
To do something better
Well,
for
I
the
was
society,
talking about
like
this,
police,
like-
veterans,
Yeah.
paramedics, whatever it is. But why do you think it is that after they're done, everyone just goes fuck them?
Yeah.
You know, who cares?
Well, we're talking about like the risk of certain jobs, like, not that there's anything wrong with working at Tesco's, but if a box of Cocoa Pops falls off the shelf, you're not getting fired, you
Yeah.
know. But if a policeman or a paramedic loses a life, or it's going to affect them, it may
Yeah, of
lose
course,
them their job,
of course.
you know.
Oh,
that,
but I mean,
even
after
mentally
they're done,
as
they're
well.
getting paid the same amount of money.
Yeah, it's
in some
crazy.
cases,
It's
you know,
crazy,
it's
like-
like
That's crazy.
there has
But-
to be. Why do you want to join the police?
But
if you
even
can
that,
just fucking
the
scan
amount of money, it's
teabags.
you're still going to feel the same if you're rich after, you know. So like my question was, there doesn't seem to be much of, like you were saying, support, not financial even, but just support, as in like, are you okay? What can we do to help you get another job after? How are you mentally? You know, is that going to affect what you do next? There's none of that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I suppose my own story and part of my journey, when I fell off the ship that time, and that was the first time I probably admitted in public, and I spoke to a sergeant who's a good friend of mine. I said, can you make me a referral to HW? Because I'm not, and I just said, because I'm not sleeping very well. And that was it. So he made a referral, and I was sent a triage form, so an online form, and you had to tick the boxes and blah blah. Are you thinking of hurting your dog? Are you thinking of blah blah blah? Are you thinking of self-harm?
Yes, but why is that mental?
Are you thinking of committing suicide? Because I wasn't suicidal, that went away. Came back, I was told, yes, you can see somebody, but it'll be in 10 months. I didn't have 10 months.
Jesus.
You know,
So you should have wrote you were suicidal then.
probably, but then I suppose if everybody does that, the system still grinds down. The support
yeah.
isn't
Not the
there.
right way to do it either.
See what I mean? Like 10 months.
Yeah.
Just
I
because you said you're not at the pinnacle of despair. Yeah.
For somebody
you know?
to get to that point, I've dealt with a lot of suicide, you know, as a police officer.
Yeah.
For somebody to get to that point, you know, they go through a lot of processes first. They're, you know, it's that roller coaster ride. So it's that early intervention's key, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if the money isn't there for that early intervention, then suicide rates go up. You know, there's more,
and that's why Northern Ireland has a very high.
Absolutely,
high
Very high.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was a big thing for me, and I suppose it's something I want to try and highlight is there needs to be more support. There needs to be more support for, you know, suicide awareness, for all that, the mental health support that needs
but
to be more
especially for
support.
people who their reason for becoming suicidal is because the job they had,
That
they
trauma.
didn't get enough
That's true.
help to
In
it.
saying that though,
you know.
like I've been on a few like suicide awareness trainings and stuff like that. Like apparently the highest number of people who kill themselves are dentists.
Right.
But the only
Because
reason
they have drugs.
so people think
Right
dentists,
You know?
so people misconstrue that to be, dentists are unhappy, but it's because dentists, paramedics, and I can't remember
police
the other
officers.
police officers as well, right? The highest risk of suicide because
It's so easy.
they literally have, one has a gun, one has a NOS.
But that's what I'm saying. So, like, even if you're a paramedic or a doctor or whatever it is, it's actually harder than you would think to go get the drugs because you have to go into the hospital, you have to sign it out, you have to make someone aware of what it's for. But if you're a dentist, you have the key to all your own shit.
Yeah.
You just go there,
Same as
3 o'clock in the
paramedic.
morning, take whatever you want, you know?
Same as a paramedic with the adrenaline injection, just too much adrenaline. That's it.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, the rates of suicide within police officers is colossal. I don't know what the figures are. I probably should have researched it before this, but I did a number of months ago look at the mainland, the mainland UK, whatever you want to call it. Don't want to split the fence here, but but you know the numbers were crazy, and they're not routinely armed. You know, there's
Aye, so police don't have guns, right? In England?
UK, yeah.
They don't carry guns.
They don't carry guns.
No.
You have armed units. So
Would you not have a gun for safety, even? You know,
in the UK, England, Scotland, Wales. No, not routinely. So they'll have an ARU or an ARV, armed response unit, or
Yeah, they have to call for it, don't they?
yeah. So they'll call for that. So they will carry taser.
Tasers, aye.
So they're more routinely armed with taser, but not with ballistic weapons.
Have you ever been
I
tased?
wonder why that is. I mean, is there like a lack of financing going on or something?
I don't
Or
think it's
Safety
much
for people,
safety
maybe.
for people. Why?
Yeah, probably.
maybe I
People
don't
get shot too
know.
easy.
I don't know what the official answer is on it.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of UK police officers don't want to be armed. I have heard of a lot of UK police officers who went out to Australia. I know of a friend who's in Western Australia Police, and they did a big recruitment drive, and a lot of ex-Met officers came over. Sorry.
You're right, man.
A lot of ex-Met officers come over, and when they found out they were going to be armed, they didn't want the job. They went back.
Is that from the mindset of if you have it, you'll use it?
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know.
Like I'd be
I
scared,
just-
like maybe more scared of like if I don't have a gun, I can't shoot anybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And if I do, I might end up in a situation where I have to use this firearm and I don't fucking want to, you know?
I don't know personally, I've always preferred to have it
Yeah.
than not have it.
Different
Me too.
situation here, though.
I'm only
isn't
joking. I
it?
don't have it on. I'm only joking.
Yeah, well, it is. It's in Northern Ireland. It's a personal protection weapon. You know, it's
Yeah.
because of that threat. You know, so. But I know I wouldn't have wanted to do the job
Without
being armed.
Without being armed, yeah.
No, I don't. That's I'm
Feel
not saying for
safer with
everybody.
it?
Yeah,
Of course,
absolutely.
of course.
You know, you don't. We look at knife crime. You look at you know the sorts of crimes we have now. You know, knife crime is through the roof.
Yeah. So if someone comes up to you with a knife and you've got no gun,
Yeah.
you're fucked.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
fucked.
You don't
You
bring
all
a
you have
knife.
to do is just go, look, I've got a gun, go
Yeah.
away. And they're like,
Yeah. You don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Nope.
You don't. You don't.
But
Oh, shit.
yeah, and taser has its uses. It's a brilliant bit of kit.
But you don't bring a taser to a knife fight.
No.
Well, taser's not perfect. You know,
Yeah.
the taser depends on.
suppose you miss, you're fucked.
It's
Well,
an
Could you
accurate
get hit
cut.
with a taser and continue on?
I've seen videos of it
Yeah.
in America. On
Probably someone
Bit of
Yeah,
meth
no,
or whatever.
yeah.
Aye, bit of meth
Yeah.
a day. Like,
But no, haven't seen
keep
it
you going.
in
Like,
action.
no. And have you been tased?
No.
No. I thought that was a thing. No.
No,
Do you all get tased? No.
You do that in America. I don't think you'd really.
There was a guy the other day showing me knuckle duster tasers.
What?
Jesus
Fuck.
fucking
Is that
Christ.
GTA or something?
No, I know what he's talking about. It's just some absolute
Rocket.
spanner. Like
I am
Like-
getting out of here, aren't I?
We'll ask you out. We'll escort you.
We'll see how the rest
We'll escort you.
No, and I don't know what way that would work. A taser is a great bit of kit in the right circumstance, but you know it depends on clothing, depends on the subject. You know, there's a lot of issues around it as
Yeah,
well.
right enough.
I wouldn't have wanted to do the job had I not been armed in this country. That's not to say
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
had grown
Well,
up.
I mean,
Hawaii or
evidence shows.
What the fuck?
Evidence shows you needed to be armed. You were shot.
Think so, no?
You look at police shootings in this country. Very, very few police shootings. We don't.
It's true, like.
It's because people are trained and people apply the use of the firearm and the tactics properly.
Yeah.
There's been more police shootings in mainland UK than there has here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny that look.
Look, I was going to ask you this, if you can talk about it. So outside of like sectarian stuff, like, you know, riots and whatever else and stuff like that, what's like the thing that's either most affected you, you've been called out to, or like the maddest thing you've been called out to that wasn't like, you know, like a riot or you know, a bomb scare or something, but something like
Or even weird or funny or
shit or something, you know?
Yeah.
Suppose you see all walks of life.
Well, you see everything. It's like, yeah, it's mental. I probably forgot more than I
Yeah.
can remember. Yeah, I have a funny story, but I don't know if
If
I
you
want
can
it in the
tell it or
podcast
not, that's fine, bro.
It
That's
is a
fine.
funny
That's
one,
why I
but-
wasn't sure if
yeah.
I could ask you that one or not.
No, but I've seen some horrific things. I've seen hangings, for example. You know,
And see, this all adds to the trauma too. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just that. Like,
No,
you know, the
absolutely not.
riots and everything. There's
Yeah.
That would
other
affect
mad
me
shit you
more
have
than
to see,
most.
do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah, fuck that.
especially young people hanging
Yeah.
themselves, you know, sort of 15, 16, horrendous. I've been at scene of some quite bad shootings, quite bad murders. You know, when you think,
And falling in the water broke the camel's back.
I know.
that's what it
I know.
does.
Mad,
you know,
like, isn't it?
But
isn't it?
it's like, you know, I've been to see some quite gruesome things and quite horrific things,
Yeah.
and you think to yourself, how could somebody treat another human being that
Yeah,
way?
that's the thing.
You
Isn't it?
know, and that's the
Evil.
thing. Yeah, yeah.
Fucking
Evil does
isn't it?
exist. I believe it
Yeah.
totally. Like,
And I
you
think
know.
a lot of it is, you know,
Devil.
the devil. Yeah. A lot of it is.
Thanks, Jerry Adams from 1983.
No, a lot of it is circumstantial too. You know, I would never criticize. I've been very fortunate in my upbringing, you know, and like it's a testament to you guys. You are doing this now. You know, it's a testament to your upbringing, of your attitudes towards what you are doing, and you know what we've talked about, policing. Like that's a
100%.
testament. There's a lot of people don't have that luxury, who don't have that stable network around them, don't have those parents who treat them the right morals. So there's a lot of that is circumstantial. You know, if you're growing up and you think your norm is, well, that's the way you speak to somebody, that's the way you treat a woman, that's the way you treat people. Well, that's the way you're going to You know, it
That's
takes a
where you
lot
conduct
to
yourself
break
in
out of
life.
that.
Then, you know,
yeah.
right? It does. It takes a lot to break out of that. And a lot of people don't bother.
Yeah.
Because they will look at their, not even necessarily their parents, but they look at their parents and their peers around them, and they will just mirror those actions and then never question them. They'll
Well,
never
it's that
question the action.
learned
Just keep,
behaviour, isn't
just
it?
keep going. You know, instead of being like, hang on, maybe this isn't the way I should be. You know.
Yeah. Well, you're a product of your environment to a certain degree,
100%,
aren't
like.
you? Yeah.
So, Chris, you're writing a book. Have you completed writing the book? Is it finished or?
I have set myself the target of having it finished by the end of March.
Yeah, because that would be a
Okay.
great read. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, I
to be honest
can't wait
with
to
Yeah,
read that,
I
man.
know-
Please let us know when it's
No,
coming
I will
out.
do. I will do.
What's the title?
So the working title is a bit cheesy, but it's Courage in the Chaos.
Oh, sweet.
Courage in the chaos.
Courage in the Chaos
Cool.
is the working title I have at the minute. When maybe I don't know if we'll leave us in or I'll see, but when I started this whole process, it was Dr. Patterson said to me about writing down how I was feeling. So I started writing and actually found for somebody who was shit at paperwork, whilst he was policing, I enjoyed writing. So I got into it.
It's a
and-
creative thing.
Yeah,
you know, it's,
absolutely.
Catharsis, you know, letting stuff out. Like.
And it was funny. I'll tell you a story first, but I started writing and I let my wife read it, and my wife read it, and she's like, "It's really good." So I let a few others read it, and like, you need to let people read this. So I sent it off to a publishing house, and they came back with an offer of a book deal. I didn't really know what I was doing, so there was a bit of to and throwing and around names. They wanted to call it the Brotherhood. I was like, no, because I felt like I was selling out because I am very fortunate to
they
be
wanted to
part of
control
that.
it a wee bit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very fortunate to be a part of that brotherhood and that network and that sort of family within the unit that I was in. I don't want to sell that out. I don't want to, there's things I'll never talk about.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about my career. So the working title is Courage in the Chaos, a story of modern day policing and PTSD in Northern Ireland. That is my story. That's what I want to talk about. So I politely declined the book offer. It just didn't wasn't aligned.
You had to decline it then?
Yeah, so it just didn't align with what I want.
They were trying to change too much.
And I
But
thought-
you're still going ahead with the book?
Oh yeah, I am. So well, I'm in talks with a few others at the
different
minute.
other-
I haven't decided whether I'll go with them or go down the self-publishing route, but that's where I'm at the minute with it.
Oh,
But I want to have the book
fucking cool,
finished
man.
first, because there's no point. At the end of the day, I don't have the book. The book will be finished
Yeah.
in about 6 weeks' time. The book will be finished.
Nice one. And how long have you been writing for?
Probably about a year now.
Nice
yeah,
one.
about a year.
Nice one, man.
I've-
So you just really get into writing?
Yeah. I got into it, and then I was like, I enjoyed it. I found, and I was chatting to a girl one day. She works sort of in radio, and she says, Chris, you're a creator now. And I was like, it's a bit gay. you're in that creative space. Yeah, but yeah.
And that's you growing up again with 4 brothers, you know? Everything's gay.
But that was
Like, what are you,
that was
fruit writing books?
Bet your other brothers were
What
like,
you reading for?
I know,
I haven't
so
read a
that
book in my life.
But yeah, that's how it started, and
But again,
where we're
that's
at.
you transitioning from I am a police officer, I'm this guy, and now you're like, who am I?
Yeah.
And then you're trying, you need to become this creative outlet.
Right,
Is
newfound.
you writing
Yeah.
yourself down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
And
just
you realise
realising,
you're more than
you are
just-
just you. You're yourself. And,
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That was just
actually
part
think,
of what you did.
It's a good thing to kind of that you're doing that, because it's I think when you're asking that question, who am I? It's good to retrace and then figure out
Yeah.
who you are. Well,
Well, I
once
think
again,
there's a guy asked me. I was chatting to him, and he asked me, "Why are you doing this?"
Very.
I come up with an answer, and he's, "But why? But why?" And he kept asking why, and eventually I couldn't answer.
Yeah, that's
and
interesting.
I suppose he made the point. It's like, you need to find your why. So now my why am I doing this? Because I want to try and make Northern Ireland better for the likes of my son or people of his generation who potentially would join the police. I don't want them to have to put up with that same threat and risk that I and my colleagues did. I want to try and break down the stigma around the mental health, particularly men's mental health. And I want to share my story. So that is my why.
Well, your
You couldn't
why,
have a better why than that, could you?
your why is working, like, because,
know what I mean?
just having you here in this podcast, this would never have happened 10, 15 years ago. A policeman talking to balaclavaed men,
Exactly.
for fun.
Yeah.
Aye, for a bit of crack.
No.
I mean, it might happen in other circumstances, but not like this, And we're interrogating you,
Yeah.
or you're interrogating us, what I mean. But Chris, let the people know your socials and how to
Yes,
get in touch
please.
with you.
Yeah, so Chris Stothers /Permetum.
And Permetum's your.
Oh yes, so
company?
I should have got to that actually. So
Yeah.
Permetum,
With
the Permetum, I came up with Permetum because at the time when I was thinking, what do I want to do? Well, I want to move forward. I'm absolutely shitting myself. So Permetum Pergendum is Latin for moving forward, despite the presence of fear. So I've taken that Permetum consultancy, and so that's my Permetum, Chris Stothers, Permetum on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on TikTok. I've got now, I think.
Class.
I am totally inept when it comes to social media, so bear with
So
me.
am
I'm
I.
only starting to put stuff out now, and it'll take me a while. You know, as I say, I'm shitting myself doing this, but I'm
Yes.
doing it. You know, I'm
Well,
owning this.
that's
so.
it's in your
Right,
nature.
Thankful that you've done it, man.
Yeah, it's just
Thank
in
you.
your nature to be. It's giving you adrenaline right now.
Yeah,
you're,
absolutely.
You're an adrenaline junkie. Like,
One last time into
you're
the
shit
fray.
at social media, you're doing it, you know.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure to have you.
It
on.
was really,
Likewise.
really a pleasure, man.
Very
Thank you
much.
very much.
No,
for doing
thanks
this.
very much for
Absolutely.
reaching out. I really appreciate it.
And then
I have a
please,
question I didn't get to ask. What's your favorite cop film?
This is the
I don't
real
know why.
hard
It's
hitting
not really.
films.
It's not really a cop film, but The Equalizer.
Equalizer?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's great. Them are
yeah,
class.
yeah.
Like,
amazing.
Yeah.
That's a good
you
one.
can't you can't beat
That's a good
Denzel.
one.
Like,
Yeah, it's
can't
hard to beat.
Denzel.
Yeah, let's say that. Yeah.
And with that, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/4 Brors podcast. There's a lot more content over there. There's a special every month. It's £1 a month for the first 50 subscribers. So, get on it while it's hot.
Also, when you do release your book and stuff, please let us know, and we'll put it up on our page and
Brilliant.
links and stuff
Yeah.
like that to whatever website to buy it and
right.
stuff. And
Yeah.
I would like to give it a read myself.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Obviously, we're not paying for it. It's free.
No,
I'll pay for it. He's just
I'll send the
he's
link.
got a wee bit of Jewish in him, so he does.
My job.
He's a quarter Jewish. So he is.
But just the bottom half.
You haven't seen the news. Right.
But yes, man, thank you very much.
No, thank
Really
you. Thanks,
appreciate it.
guys.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank
Peace
you.
out, everybody. Hope you
Peace
enjoyed
out.
this one.
See you after.
Later.
To leave the fucking cocksucking cheese where it is. This magic moment.